Yeah. Y'all, welcome. I don't have my watch. All right, we need another minute. All right, who's on there? On here. United States are gone. No one's on that. Good morning, Corby. How are you?
Good. Hey,
We're all here. We're ready to make it happen this morning, y'all. All right, we're gonna get you in here. If you have not already given your card to spaghetti, you can be entered in to win a pretty big prize. Not gonna lie, it's pretty big. Right, Emmy?
Yeah.
Yeah. See? You got to ship by, yeah. There.
What do you?
No, I think you're getting coffee cards right now. Maybe. All right. Come on down.
You gave me a business card. You get double entries. But this week's winner, by half a coffee, these rates, is Rita.
That's
finally, 2 years later.
the $5 carrying card, but we're here for you. Got it. I've been welcome, my friends. All right, guys. Going to gratitude. I'm going to lead this morning because I have to take a minute. We're going to talk about this a little bit later as well, depending on how much time we have. But my moment of gratitude this morning is that I'm in business with Todd Haig. I'm in business with each of you, and we're in business with Gary Keller. Some of you may have heard that yesterday there was an announcement made that Gary Keller and Keller Williams sold a number of shares to a private equity firm. Does anybody have any idea what that means for us?
Capital.
Capital. Thank you.
Capital Technology Partners is good.
It is.
Very good.
So here's the truth. We are not going to forget this time. Whether or not they have an intention in that in the future, I have no idea, and they're not letting us know that. However, I would say there's also some IPO opportunities. That's a different conversation. Let me talk about this though and why I'm grateful for it. To your point, Chad, when I looked at the companies that Stone Capital Partners is partnered with, they're some of the biggest names in real estate in the backside of what we do. So what does that mean for you as the real estate agent? Well, it means this, it means that Gary Keller stood in firm, solid ground, jeez, and said that he stuck a flag in training and education, that I want to be truthful to my training and education, and for a lot of years, especially in the last 5 or 6, he spent a lot of time trying to figure out the business of real estate, not your business, but the business of owning brokerages and brands and growth trajectory. And so what Gary did here, you guys, to Chad's point, he gave us additional capital for us to be able to do things with that we currently couldn't do because it was locked in. It gives us access to the better technology opportunities that they can institute as a part of what we already have to make our programs better. It's an opportunity for them to work with us at a high level of leadership to make our brand the best possible brand for you guys, with the input of people who are paid to consult at the highest possible level. And then lastly, to give us a visual change in our marketing, in our presence. As an existing, some would say, as a mature real estate brand, this gives us an opportunity to interject what is working at a high level for other companies that are in the financial services industry. And we get to take that data that they've already collected and those habits that they've already instituted, and we get to plug and play those in ours. So somebody went online last night, so if you go online and want to look, great, don't waste your time in my opinion, because what's the most important thing you can do today? Is it read about Gary Keller's sale of his money? Is that the most important thing for you to do today? Because I'll tell you what, a bunch of agents tried to text me about how this was going to be crazy for them, and I asked them, you sold 3 homes last year, this doesn't impact you at all, right? So there's my proof. It's not to say don't ask questions. It's not to say what does this mean. Don't say that in lieu of going and making phone calls and connecting with your database. If they might have a question about what does this mean for you, well, it means that we're going to elevate in really every area of the deliverables from a high standard. But for you guys, at the end of the day, the consumer does not care about what's on the outside of the building. They care about you and the conversation you're having. So my gratitude this morning is I'm grateful to be in a company that has leadership that says, listen, we know when we reach our cap, and we want somebody to come in and be able to run this at a high level so that you guys can continue to grow and build and retain, recruit incredible agents that want to work for a company that isn't leaving our future up to, right? And every single day, Gary Keller has proven what he wants to do and where he's good at. He's a visionary realtor. That is it. Never claimed to be more. So I don't think for a day-to-day basis for us, you guys, that has any change. And if anybody that you talk to wants to talk to me about it, great. I'll always have that conversation because I think it's important to keep it open. How many of you read Gary's response? Okay, so you saw it. You know where he's at. We spent as a leadership team yesterday about 4 hours on phone calls related to this. That was a lot. I think I needed like the 30-minute version, which is essentially what I told you. So if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Myself, obviously Todd. I think we have a good handle on this. We spent another hour and a half this morning discussing it on a local level. So I feel really good about it, and I feel like we're in a good place. If you guys have any questions or somebody online says something, you can send them my way too. Their company can sell shares every day, but it's when I'm anyways. All right, that is our Gratitude Tuesday. How about you guys? What are you grateful for this Tuesday? 13 messages I received from recruits or people that I'm friends with that are at other companies. And one of those guys sold 3 homes last year. And I said, close enough to me what I responded. How about you go sell more homes, Jim? Would be good for you and your family. What does Gary Keller have to do with his life? Nothing. Anyway, moving on. When I get calls like that, and it's funny because literally he only sold 3 homes. Why do you pay attention to that, right? I'm not paying attention to anybody that's their own. Great. Let's jump in. Man, come on down. I was kidding. Really excited to hear it. You've been running a speech all morning. It's okay to swear, I mean, Tom's not here.
Actually, he's making fun of me because, in my normal lender, everyday person brain, I actually forgot that I was up today. I was filling in for Great North Title, so I know everybody else can relate to that, where you know you have something to do and you're like, oh, let's get a last minute prepared for that one. And if you say that never happened to you, I know you're a liar.
You're not working hard enough.
Yeah. I think I usually say, I don't want to talk about interest rate, right? Say that is the exact opposite. So does anybody know where the market is headed? You heard any news on interest market? Thank you. I hope so, right?
10 years, got about 60 basis.
And you're down about 50 basis points. I know that a common theme that when I was to chat with my referral partners is, do you have an opportunity today to spend 1 or 2 hours calling your database, calling your people that have been thinking about buying homes because they're waiting for rates to go down, right? If we wait for rates to go down, I mean, my team and I were kind of joking about this last week. We're like, we have literally have people that have been waiting for rates to go down for over 2 years. And what has happened to the price of homes? I mean, we're kind of laughing about, we're like, oh my God, we're gonna retire before these people buy houses. So if you are like, what should I do today? What is my lead gen? I haven't done my lead gen. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, maybe I'll do it Friday, whatever. Call your people and say, have you heard interest rates have gone down a little bit? You can get a rate in the sixes. I quoted an FHA and VA rate yesterday at 6.125. I think my clients just about fell off their chair at 6.125. That is a fantastic interest rate in today's market. And they were up against 12 other people for this property with a VA home loan. Well, that's fantastic. If you want ideas or just need reasons to give people a call, you don't really need a reason. You can call and talk about their latest Facebook post. You can call and talk about whatever, but likely it will lead into the market. It will lead into where interest rate, and now you have some information to just make those phone calls. And that is my normal theme for my team too, and that's what we talked about a lot on our calls yesterday, because multiple offers, as you know, are around. Some are getting accepted. We wrote 13 pre-approvals this weekend as a team, and we got 2. That's hard. That's a lot of time. But those people will get houses, of course. But now we have an opportunity to tell them, hey, remember last week when you were looking at houses and your rate was 6.75 and now it's 6.125? You're pretty happy about that. Does anybody have any questions? Then? Where are rates gonna go? I knew you were gonna ask me that. Of course, by second quarter, we're gonna see lower 6s, potentially high 5s. I'll believe it when I see it, but may as well call with good news, slightly good news, rather than the opposite.
6.125, not a lower 6.
That's a lower 6, but FHA and VA is typically lower than conventional. And so I wouldn't. But. 2, of course. Better than a 7.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna react on that as we get back. Hey, you guys, one of the things that I wanted to make you aware of is, first of all, Marina makes a really good point, you guys. And the good point is this. One is, and maybe some of you heard this last week. Did you hear Jason Abrams say that the markers in this place don't work? Did you hear Jason Abrams say, if you guys were listening last week? Because I want to play like roulette next time. I'm gonna die up here. You're never buying at the top of the market, are you? Buying at the top of the moment. Okay, so if you go back all those years to 08 and you see where we were and you see some of this, right? And then you see some of these. This is the top of the moment. If you look at the top, the trajectory of the market, you're never buying at the top of the market, you're buying at the top of the moment. What does that mean? How do you use that with your consumer? Home prices over the long haul have done what? Always. Always. That's scary to say because we always think like, I'm the person who goes, yeah, I just did it and now it's gonna stop. But it's not, you guys. Here's the truth. When you're having conversations with your customer as it pertains to interest rate, if you're having conversations with your customers, hey, you know, I don't want to buy at the top of the market's gonna go down. Okay, how long are you planning on staying? Well, we thought probably somewhere between 7 to 10 years. Okay, here's a 7 to 10 year graph of the last 7 to 10 years. And guess what it shows? It shows growth. It always shows growth, right? We might be down for a couple of years, but over a course of 10 years, we're always up. If you take that decade at a time and you put it anywhere in there, you're gonna find that you're up, right? So Raina, thanks so much for that. And honestly, you guys having the conversation about interest rates, it's an easy conversation about what? What are you to them? If we take out the idea of being a sales agent, what are you to them? Could you say that you're an asset manager? You're in charge of helping them manage their asset and to gain the most amount of money or potential amount of money from them. So having a conversation that's a little less emotional, a little bit more business oriented about being an asset manager allows you to call them up and say, hey, Corby, it's Nick over at KW. Hey, I know that you and Katie bought at this point. Have you thought about having doing a refinance? Have you thought about this? Having that conversation puts you square in the middle of why you want them to call you. You're a resource for them and you're a resource for their asset. So that's all I got for that, guys. Thank you so much, Raina. We appreciate it. And thank you for lunch. I'm probably gonna get you guys out of here early to grab some. So we'll rock and roll. Thanks, Raina. We appreciate you. All right. One of the other things that they released yesterday, and I really love this, and I think for those of you that didn't get to go this year, we have this link. There are hundreds of hours of video. These are live family reunion sessions that were recorded, both Gary's stuff and some of the stuff that you didn't see. There's stuff from Phil Jones in there. There's stuff from Cody Gibson, and there's stuff Hannah Pitt. There's stuff from really guys. Rick Rubin, he is on the MREA podcast this week. He's going to be coming in here in a couple of weeks. But you guys, this is one of those things that this is what separates us. If you take a look at what we really do well, we do training and education well, and now they're unlocking that for you guys. In addition to this, I would ask you this, if you have anybody else in your life that is in real estate and doesn't have access to this at their brokerage, send it to them. This is applicable to all of us, and there's so many really good things that were shared in there. I'm going to go over it and go through a couple of the ones and share some of the ones that I've already watched or that I went to while we were there. But check it out, you guys. If you are sitting around this afternoon and you're just scrolling Facebook, listening to all the pundits talk about why Gary's acceptance of this was a sellout, go to here. Look at this. There's a ton of good information in there, you guys. And ultimately, it's going to make you a better agent if you go in and pay attention. You've got really great people that are in there. So, all right, appreciate you, my man. All right, next up, we're going to have Sean Corby come up, and he's going to share with us 5 secrets for successful negotiation. Everybody, welcome up, Sean Corby.
Awesome. You do this, huh?
Yep. All right, just for the 3 people that are online.
Perfect. All right, good. I'm gonna sit on this.
I'm excited to talk about this. This is kind of one of my things I like best about this business is negotiating and you know, communicating and that kind of thing. The thing that I always tell people is you're negotiating all the time, right? Every day you're negotiating. So when I'm talking about negotiating, I'm not just talking about negotiating a contract. I'm not using the microphone. I'm using it as a pointer. I'm not just talking about negotiating like on a transaction, but we negotiate with our clients. We negotiate with co-op. We negotiate transit. We do all of that. So I put together kind of 5 things that I try to keep top of mind, and I just wanted to share them today. So I don't know if we have all the slides. I've got it too. Okay, awesome. So the first thing I like to say is loose lips sink ships. So
what you say and what you don't say are hugely important when you're negotiating. It's, as a rule of thumb, I always think it's better to, I don't need these things. It's always better to be the one asking the questions than it is to be the one necessarily answering the questions. So for instance, it's fair game, and whenever I'm working with the buyer, I like to ask as many questions as possible. You know, but when you're the listing agent, when you're working with the seller, be very careful because it's very easy to get tripped up and start to say things that you can betray the seller's interest. So great question to ask when you're on the buy side. Obviously, there's things like what's the ideal closing date. You're trying to gather as much information so that you can help, especially in a competitive situation, you can help your client's office. But sometimes a simple question like what's most important to your seller is a fantastic question to ask, because a lot of times they're gonna tell you, they're gonna say, you know, and a lot of these other agents, if they're not asking, they're not getting the same intel that you're getting. And even one little differentiation piece can make a huge difference when you're negotiating. How to list $5,000 in 10 words or less. So I had a buyer, and this was quite a few years ago, and they were first-time buyers, and we were looking at that time it was about $175,000 list. We were in competition even back then, and my buyer said, you know, we really want this house. We really want this house, but obviously we'd like to get a good deal too. So I called the agent and I said, well, you know, where do we stand? That's another very innocuous question to ask, because if they tell you where you stand, now they've given you information. 10 words, he said that basically the offers are identical except for the earnest money. So that seems like good information, but my buyers were willing to raise their price. They said, we'll go an extra 5,000. After that conversation, I was able to tell them, you don't need to raise your offer $5,000. How about just doubling your earnest money? We can do that. So that's what we did and got the offer. So offers are basically identical except for the earnest money, cost the seller $5,000. Doesn't seem like it's that bad thing, that much of a bad thing to say, but it did work. Silence is your superpower. Sometimes when you're asking questions on another side, even if this is like you're trying to get some information, you're trying to get there's something called dynamic pauses, where if you're in a negotiation, you're talking, don't feel like you have to overpower someone and you talk over them. Sometimes just let there be this uncomfortable silence. It feels, you know, it feels uncomfortable at the time, but sometimes people will keep going. And if they don't, there's a technique called mirroring, and it's not necessarily the mirroring where you're like acting like you're crossing your legs and you're leaning on the same thing. It's basically if someone is saying something to you and you want them to give you some new additional information, you don't just ask them, well, what do you mean by that? Because then they're just going to say the same thing again louder. I just said it. What you say is you repeat the last 3 or 4 words that they just said. So if they said, well, we really can't accommodate that closing date. You can't accommodate that closing date. And then you're silent. And then they will continue to tell you why. Or they'll say, yes, but if we could get this, then maybe we could. So all that is really, really beneficial. And there's some things that you have to kind of practice with. And these last two things specifically, I learned from Chris Voss. I don't know if anybody's read the book, Never Split the Difference. I've got it at the end of this too. 2 of my absolute favorite books, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and then he and Steve Shaw wrote another book called The Multi Agent. Both of those are absolute excellent. So I highly recommend those. So, and that one. I think both of them are out in at least I know the Multi Agent is out there. And the Multi Agent has a lot of great questions to ask too, because the whole breakdown of that book is the premise that you're either, when you're going on an appointment, especially if you're going to go on a listing appointment, you're either the favorite or the fool. If you're the favorite, you're the person that was referred or is most likely going to get the business, and the fools are all the other people that are being interviewed, but they're really just doing their due diligence, right? You know, my grandpa said I was supposed to talk to 3 agents. I'm going to go with Ron, but I'm also going to talk to Gary and Sherry too, right? Those are the fools. They're probably not going to get it. They're going to be used for their market analysis. They're going to spend a bunch of time. but really it's Rhonda that's gonna get it. And some of those questions you can ask will let you know going into the appointment whether you're really set up to be a favorite. Okay, number two. Be the calm pilot. Anybody that's worked with me for any amount of time knows this analogy very, very well. And that is that, the steady hand can win the deal, right? So early on in my career, well, I won't jump ahead, but basically the whole analogy is that when we're working with a transaction, the analogy is that we're on an airplane, right? And we as the agent are the pilot. And we're going to close. We want a smooth landing at the closing, right? But along the way, there's things that happen, right? So expect turbulence. There's almost no transaction that doesn't have at least some little surprise, a little title hiccup, or a inspection, or a septic, or a sewer, or a job loss, or whatever it is. So we don't want to take on the emotion of the transaction, right? Because we're being hired to be the pilot that's flying the plane, and we're going to get it to land. So we wouldn't want to be on an airplane that all of a sudden gets a little clearer turbulence, and the pilot comes on and goes, "What the heck was that? I don't know what that was," because everybody would be rattled. You want the pilot to come on and say, "Oh, we're in a little clearer turbulence. We're going to drop it down to 25,000 feet, and if you look out the window right there, you can see the Grand Canyon." That depends on the line of the transaction. Here's what's happening. You don't want to minimize it. You want to say, "Here's what's happening. Here are the options. This kind of thing happens, and we're going to keep our eye on being solution oriented, and we're going to get this figured out." Not a big deal. And they're like, "Cool, that's all part of it." Also, a little side note, the more you can set the expectation up front that this kind of thing is going to happen, that it's not uncommon up front, then they're not as rattled when it happens, right? You can say, "Remember when we talked about this? This is it's happening. We're going to get through it." Lessons from Perry. The reason I call it that is early in my career, I did an open house for another agent, another Keller Williams agent. Let me hold his townhouse open in Roseville. And I met a buyer, and the buyer was attached to a very overbearing type A dad that was going to protect his daughter and all the pitfalls of real estate agents and everybody else that could potentially harm her. Being a dad, not a big deal. But I was new, and it was a big deal, and I remember I'd call him, and he would just answer with his last name. So he was just really high D type A. So I remember one time we had some kind of situation happen. We got some turbulence, and he was like, "This doesn't happen, and this doesn't happen, blah, 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 blah," right? And you read the riot act. And I remember I came back to Perry, because it was Perry's listing, and they wrote on the townhouse that I was holding open. And I remember saying, "But Perry, if this happens and this happens, they're going to do it." And I remember him turning his chair and he said, "Sean, I'm not going to get emotionally involved in this. I'm just not." I was like, "Oh." So I've said that forever. I'm not going to get emotionally involved in this. I'm just not. If you ever feel yourself getting too riled up, know that you're probably coming out of that calm pilot situation a little bit, and you could be on the verge of blowing things up or making things worse, which is what you don't want to do. Number 3. Be the easy choice. Stand up for the right reasons. So we don't want to be the reason why a deal doesn't come together, right? So in my opinion, and I'm going to go into a lot of opinion zone here, I don't think that there's a big difference between being an aggressive advocate of your client and being a jerk. I don't think, it's my opinion, I don't think that it serves anybody. It doesn't serve the business. It doesn't serve the other party. It doesn't serve your client to be a jerk, right? Aggressive, assertive, that's totally different. But you'll run into some people that will, anybody ever had anybody tell them how many years they've been in the business? That is a red flag to saying, "Hey, I'm kind of for myself." But here's where you can read the tea leaves on that. If they feel like that, why are they saying it? Because they feel like they need to be validated in some way. How can you use that to your buyer's advantage or your seller's advantage, right? You can wow, that's amazing. That's great. Well, it's so nice to work with a pro across the, it's really, and sometimes that will diffuse things, right? It's great to work with somebody that's a pro that's solution oriented. And that's not necessarily manipulation, because that's exactly how I feel. I like working with somebody that's solution oriented and understands that we're all on the same team. We have the same goal, and that's to land the plane and close the transaction. How you come across as a representative of your client, if you come across abrasive and obnoxious, even if you have the nicest clients in the world, what is the other side going to think of your clients? Because it's going to just completely stick to the client. So be very careful. If you're representing them and you want to represent their interests and get them a good deal and have a smooth transaction. Crafting compelling offers. This one's huge, especially with when you're competing, and even when you're not. Try to deliver the most beautiful purchase agreement you possibly can. If you don't feel confident in it, have somebody look it over. Say, does it look just exactly like how you want to see it? And what I mean by that is, don't forget the CIC documents if it's got an HOA. Send over the arbitration. Don't mark boxes in both of the financing addendum. Don't mark the first box and the second box, and don't have them templated to all say return to buyer. These are just the little things where it's like, pay attention, deliver a very clean thing. One of the things I like to tell my sellers or my buyers, especially if you're in a competitive situation, is what is the most important thing for you in this deal? Know what's most important to them. And what I say is, there's two sides of the continuum, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. One is you want a great deal, and the other one is you want the house. Those are two completely different negotiation strategies, right? Because if they say, this is my grandma's house and I have to have it, they're not going to be worried about what they're paying for it, whether they're going to do an inspection, right? You tell them how to get it. Escalate, no cap, pull your inspection, do an appraisal bridge for whatever it takes, pay cash. You know how to get the house. But if they want to get a deal, you need to know that too, because they may be willing to walk 3-4 times. You need to know that, because that's going to be, you don't want to give that advice to somebody that wants the deal, because then you're not listening to them. Yeah, make it very clean, make it very clear, make sure that the offer got through. Don't just send it and never call the listing agent and say, did you get my offer? I've got a personal email, I've got a professional email. 95% of the time the offers come to my work email. Every now and then one ends up in my personal, I don't even know how they get it, right? My personal email. But it's not in my, if I don't look at it, whatever reason, I might not see it. I still look at it regularly for this very reason, but why wouldn't that agent say, hey, I sent over an offer today at 2:30, did you get it? Just want to confirm. It's the agent that's sending it over. It's coming upon them to make sure that it was looked at and received. Pick up the phone. If you're on the buy side, call. Video text is huge. Grant uses this quite a bit. Build rapport with the other agent, right? I guarantee you that the listing agents are not getting video texts. So if you're in a competitive situation, pick up the phone and just say, hey, I just sent you an offer. Hope you get it. Please confirm. I'd let you know. We're going to be easy to deal with. I counsel my buyers on inspections. It's going to be a smooth transaction. Advocate for your client. Make sure that you're delivering the offer on a platter, hours, fruits surrounding it, metaphor. And that'll make it easier for the other side to say yes. You want to frame your offers smartly. Yeah, and the other thing too is help your co-op look great. Right? Give great feedback. Whenever you're sending something back, there's ways that you can make the co-op look like a hero in their client's eyes, and that's also very helpful to you here. Okay. So you are here. Know where your clients are and where their priorities are. So it's always good to know exactly where you stand in any situation, because you can't really guide somebody out of a situation if you don't know where you're starting from. And one of the first things that's really important is to know what kind of personality type you're dealing with, right? Especially starting with your client. Then it's also going to spill over into any other transaction. Like, what are you dealing with? Are you dealing with a high D? Are you dealing with somebody that just wants to do things like this? Are you dealing with a high I that wants to go out for happy hour afterwards and just, talk about Netflix and, oh yeah, we can get around to the transaction as well. Are you dealing with a high S, somebody that just likes no surprises, steady Eddie, everything is just kind of, on an even keel? Or are you dealing with a high C, somebody that needs to know all the details, right? Every single T, every single I is dotted and crossed. Knowing the personality types that you're dealing with is going to help you so much in communication and being able to negotiate. What's the number one priority? And this is something that I think I talked to you about, do you want the deal or do you want the property? I went ahead here a little bit, but really find out what's most important to your client and then try to deliver on that. If their number one thing is, I'm gonna use the situation where you're not in competition. Let's say that they're like, well, we kind of want to deal on this. We want to be able to say, we got this for 10K off. Okay, awesome. So that's the most important thing for you in this one. Yes, it is. If we could get this $10,000 off, that would be the most important thing. Then I would say, fantastic, here's how we're going to game plan and strategize. If that's the most important thing that you're looking for, we're going to make everything else super seller friendly. Make sense? And they usually go, oh, okay, we're going to give them a strong earnest plan check, maybe 2% or more. We're going to give them a very reasonable inspection if you're going to do one. And I always recommend that you do one, but there are ways to soften inspections, right? You can say, we're looking for hazards and major unforeseen things. We're not going to ask for anything under $5,000, right? That gets some sellers a little, now they're really, the only thing that's going to come up is like a septic or sewer or major inspections. That helps the seller, feel good. Whatever closing date you want, whenever you want. All kinds of things. Make everything else seller friendly. Check the second box in the financing in there. Put a written statement deed in there. Check box 112, retained by sellers. That's a big one for me. In my opinion, I never want to see an offer come in on one of my listings where at least one of those boxes is retained by sellers. Because otherwise, how are they ever going to get liquidated damages if the buyers flake out? Anyway, so those are some of the thoughts that I was thinking about. But like I said, I think the fifth one is just kind of some of the resources that I've utilized. Yeah, stay sharp, keep leveling up, always look, and always be learning. And that's one of the reasons why it's so great to go to things like Family Review, Mega Camp, some of these things, because you can learn one turn of a phrase or one little thing, and it makes all the difference in the world with your negotiation. And after you've been sharpening that skill for years and sometimes decades, it becomes more second nature and it becomes just part of a natural response that you have. So never stop learning. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Read the full page, it's fantastic. But yeah, you're gonna learn something from every negotiation. That's all I got for today. If anybody has a question.
My question about more of a patient. You said to stay in communication with the listing agent. I actually had a client offer on Sunday at 480 with an escalation to 500. April 2nd close date. Their agent was communicating with the listing agent. They weren't the only offer. They weren't the highest offer, but the listing agent said, if you can close March 27th versus April 2nd, we won't use your escalation, so it saved them $20,000 to close. What is that, 5 or 6 days earlier? 20 grand. When that listing agent could have said, I'll take your 20 grand. And well, March 27th, my buyers were like, oh, that moves our payment a month earlier. We still have to rent out our current home, but they decided to take the risk. They're like, we can move fast. It's only 5 days. I was super impressed with that agent and taking communication.
Right, so they stayed in contact and they became the favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed if I get a multiple offer situation, there's almost always one that I'm rooting for. Right? Because you just know that it's going to be smooth. They're a pro, they've got a track record. If they don't have a track record, they've got excellent communication skills and they've got excellent resources behind them. Right? So There's been plenty of times where I've like gotten a fantastic offer from a newer agent. And it's clean and it's great, and I start rooting for them even over an experienced agent. It's all in the presentation, but that's why it's so important to be, I just don't think it serves you to be an aggressive jerk. That's just not my style. Maybe it works for some people, but that's just not me. Because when someone wants to work with you as the co-op, that's huge for your client. Absolutely huge. So, and it's one of those things that's just, I talk about a lot. So, anyway. Anything else? Thanks, Gord. Right. Appreciate your pouring in, brother. All right. Sophie, come on. This is the next part of the year, right? Where was Old Beach? How many of you were there last year? Super cool location, right? Great food, great, I have to not spend much money this year on ordering top shelf, but I promise you guys there. You guys, this is a great event. This is, the culmination of us celebrating you. We're super excited to celebrate you and everything that we did, even in a really messy market. So one, RSVP, two, get ready to have a great night. We're gonna dress up and we're gonna go out and we're gonna kill St. Paul and have a good time together. So we have reason to celebrate this year, so let's make it happen. And we will see you guys on the 3rd. So like what? Just like 4 weeks? A little under 4 weeks? Okay, Emmy's already got it under control. You got it. We're good to go. This is gonna be a great night. You guys, we have baskets we're gonna be giving away, raffling. So we have a lot of our, you know, some of you are here and I thank you already for that. But we have other people putting together baskets, our vendors putting together baskets. We're grateful for that because we're going to be able to have a fun night, give some stuff away and really celebrate it all. So, April 3rd, don't hesitate to sign up, show up, have a good night and enjoy being together and good food and other things.
Official, now official announcement. So the week of March Madness, we have Mark, Rico, Chad.
Chad. Go 3-on-3 tournament outside.
I got hot. Let's do this. Oh, man. You need to get behind when I got my boy Grace. I need to give me the crown now. Good. Let's do this.
Go.
Right? I can't drop.
My vertical's like this. I have endurance, but I can't shoot that low, but.
I have to just slide a piece of paper under the beach of my house.
Yeah.
Now, I can't just like, y'all know who he is, so I'm gonna just be on the.
Hey, take every commercial, well, me, I'll buy the beer. How's that? Yeah.
Your basketball releases.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, well, we're excited to have you guys, show up for that. We should do a bracket too. Does Mark do a bracket this year? Yeah, I gotta get in front of what's that, 2 weeks? Something like that. All right, anything else on? Some of you guys hear this. I'm gonna give you back time today and thank, Raina for, lunch. Let's go get lunch, hang out, talk to each other. There's Jimmy John's back there. Don't hesitate to eat it all. Have a great day, guys. Look at the meeting. Don't forget to ask for somebody.
At the bottom is who need the dude's name or number, and then like